How is it going, everyone? It seems like some massive changes are happening at PlayStation in terms of a lot of their decision making when it comes to various things that they do. First of all, a story that's gotten a lot of traction is PlayStation pushing away from their PC releases. We'll talk about that in a little bit. However, there's a reputable insider, Sneakers OS, noted on NeoGAF in response to a user that I think a lot of people will be happy about. He noted, "We're talking about games in the future. I understand if folks are disappointed with the output on this front, but there are loads of changes happening now that we'll see increasingly over the next 3 to 4 years that are more in line with what folks preferred from them. That isn't to say live service titles are done and dusted, by the way. I don't think live service needs to die, and guess what? Sony has had successful live service games. There's been Helldivers 2 that they published. It was a second-party title, but they published that. Gran Turismo 7's a live service game. MLB The Show is a live service game. It's just, you should be selective with the live service games you do, and you should have at least the ability to utilize a single brain cell to realize games like Concord, Fair Game, Horizons Hunting, and Gathering aren't necessarily the games that your core audience wants, and everybody watching our channel wants Sony to shift back into focusing on single-player games. We're not asking for every game to be on the level of a God of War, a Horizon that has this 5-year arduous development cycle. I'm totally okay with games like a Gravity Rush coming out, and I don't know how successful they're gonna be but I do think games like that build a lot of goodwill, and that is an unquantifiable metric that I bring up over and over again that Sony has done an incredible job of absolutely destroying over the course of the last few years with their core audience, and I do believe that's one of the main reasons they're moving away from releasing games on PC, because that core audience that they have on PlayStation wants to feel valued, that they made the right decision in buying that console, and then when they see a different platform getting all their games, that does lessen the value, at least in their mind, to them buying the game. I know for a lot of people they're gonna think about, hey, it's just more people playing more games, but for the people that spent $500 and they're invested into that console, that core audience, they are a little bit bummed out by that. And from PlayStation as well, they should be wanting to heighten the value proposition of PlayStation as much as you can to keep people retained into the platform as well. And I think single-player games are gonna do that. I get it. Y'all have no competition at this point in the console space. Xbox is cooked, and what they wanted to do, and I brought it up for years at this point, is that they have their ecosystem in place in PlayStation. They view that PlayStation, we already have them locked in. These core consumers, they're suckers. They're gonna buy everything that we put out, and we don't need to win them over anymore. We need to generate new passive revenue streams within the passive revenue stream of that ecosystem. We all understand this. It's easy to comprehend why they push so hard into live service. However, Sean Layden put it the best. I don't know if you guys have seen his clip, but Sean Layden put it the best, that live service games are not these games that everybody is gonna go check out the newest live service game that comes out. People have a finite amount of time in this world, and I've been making that point as well for years. It's not about competing with every other game only. There is just a finite amount of time that we all have, and live service is fighting against that more than anything, this finite amount of time. With single-player games, a Spider-Man 2 comes out, you play it for a week, you get the Platinum Trophy in a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe it takes you a little bit longer if you're busy, but ultimately, you're gonna move on. The return on investment on live service games comes when people are playing those games for literally a year, 2 years, and you're making that passive revenue. There's only so many hours to go around. I know that Fortnite revenue is juicy, man. I know you see what Call of Duty is doing. I know you see the NBA 2Ks of the world, and they're making money hand over fist, but that's not your lane, PlayStation. Focus on your lane, do a live service game every now and again, and then focus on what brought you to the dance. What brought the PlayStation 4 the appeal? I remember the tail end of the PlayStation 3 when their back was against the wall. They were just spamming out top-level exclusive after top-level exclusive, and not all of them were home runs, but that, to me, is when that perception of PlayStation first party was starting to be formed, when you saw the Naughty Dogs and the Sucker Punches and the Gorillas putting out so many many great games. And what was Xbox doing at that time? They were shifting away. They were like, hey, this connecting, and I know PlayStation had PS Move, but let's be honest, Xbox was so focused on Xbox Connect, and I remember by 2010 and 2011 that the game was shifting a little bit where Xbox wasn't getting a lot of great games every year, but PlayStation 3 was, and by the end of the generation, I think PS3 ended up a really solid console, and then that parlayed into the PS4. The unfortunate reality is, in today's landscape, is PlayStation's making a lot of boneheaded decisions, but there's nobody that's making a lot of great decisions that's gonna check them. They're kind of left to do whatever they want because the market is just that way. However, that is why personally, and you can tell me that I'm cheering for games to fail, but I hope everybody realizes the consequences of some of these live service games succeeding will have. If a Concord is successful, if a Fair Game is successful, if a Horizon Hunting Gathering is successful, I know what PlayStation is gonna do. That only reinforces their thought process of, oh my god, these guys are suckers. They're gonna play these games all the time. They're gonna give us so much money for these games. No, we can't go back to single player. Let's give it the old college try. Let's try live service again. That's why, guys, for the betterment of PlayStation, for the long term, you should want all of the live service games to fail, because just realize the second PlayStation gets a W or they get a couple W's, they're going back in on this. That's why at this point, no, we need them to be permanently scarred. We need all of these games to just bomb. Even Marathon, and look, I haven't been one of those people that has wanted Marathon to fail outright, but because PlayStation is involved and they're publishing that game and it's a live service game, they need to be permanently scarred. Marathon, I am hoping fails because it's for the betterment of the longevity of what I want out of PlayStation selfishly. Sure, for the betterment of them making as much money as possible, it would be great if every single live service game popped off for them. I don't want that. For me, selfishly, I want PlayStation to go back to what they did best. And for that to happen, we need them to be scarred permanently where these games are colossal failures. We need Fair Game to bomb. We need Horizon to bomb. Marathon, look, it's pulling big numbers now. I think that game's cooked as well based on the reception that I've been seeing, and it's pretty much how I said it was going to happen. It was going to open big, and it could end up being dead in 6 weeks. I think that's exactly what's going to end up happening, but we'll see. But Marathon bombing, again, this isn't something that's like, oh, I'm asking for all of these studios to be shutting down or anything like that. It is for the greater good of PlayStation, because and I am totally talking about it selfishly because I don't want these live service games, and I know the second PlayStation gets a W, that's going to be a little scary because they might be salivating. They might be like, bro, we got it. The Horizon live service game is it. Dude, just give me Horizon 3. I don't want this trash. You can have it, you know. We're good, pal. We're good. We don't need it. Just give me Horizon 3. Let's wrap up Aloy's story, and then, Gorilla, you can move on to a new IP, because not everybody is super into Horizon like me, but let's get Horizon 3 out. Let's move on to a new IP. Boom. Done. Unfortunately, Bluepoint is gone and dusted, but Ben's studio, hopefully, they can put out some games, put out some low-risk, high-reward titles, or not even a high-reward, low-risk, build some goodwill, medium reward, some remasters. People with your core audience, if you want to build that goodwill, an Infamous collection would really do that at this point. You know, I get why you don't want to do Resistance and Killzone, just because you've still got your foot in the game with the live service games, and you don't want to split your audience's multiplayer hours with games that aren't live service titles, so I can understand that. But Infamous, get that on there, get some of the other titles, get the Resistance campaigns. If you don't want to give us the multiplayer, get us the Resistance campaigns on PlayStation, man. Like, there's things you could do that aren't gonna be this arduous, a 5 to 7 year development cycle. Get a remaster done of Uncharted Golden Abyss. This is stuff that people would appreciate, and it would be something that would be a fairly quick turnaround, all things considered. So, I know people are gonna be like, oh, you're just asking for these games to fail. Look, I'm telling you guys, if PlayStation gets even a couple W's, they're gonna push even harder with live service, and we need this to be a story. We take the L right now. This generation, a large portion of it is a bit of a wash because of the live service push, but it will be a learning lesson, but it won't be fully impactful as a learning lesson until we take a couple more L's. Fair Game, Horizon, Marathon to an extent, we need those L's to come into play, and then I really do believe they're just gonna be like, alright buddy, we can't continually spend hundreds of millions on these games. You know, 4 Loop I think looks okay, but you know what, 4 Loop, I'm sorry, yo, get in the bag. It's for the greater good, you know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, and again, I know that there are people that are pouring their hearts and souls into these games. It's not about the games in a vacuum. It's about how I know Sony will react if some of these games are a W and they end up making a lot of money on them. It's just gonna reinforce that live service push or make them second guess going back to single player games. That will absolutely happen, and if anybody thinks otherwise, you're kidding yourselves. The other story that's obviously gaining a lot of traction is PlayStation shifting away from PC. I think at the end of the day, while I prefer games to be available on all platforms, I can totally see why Sony would be doing something like this. And it's not just because the recent games have done fairly lukewarm numbers. Spider-Man 2 did pretty badly, however, that was the worst PC port of all time. Last of Us Part 2 did okay, not amazing numbers, and Stellar Blade did incredible. And I still view that games like Stellar Blade are gonna end up on PC, those second-party titles, but those first-party games, Ghost of Yotei, Wolverine, games of that ilk, I could see those not coming to PC. We already know that Marvel Tokon's coming to PC. We know that Death Stranding 2 is coming to PC, but the first-party single-player games, I think more than ever, Sony needs to shift the optics of their platform, because right now the optics are Sony wastes a lot of time for live service games. They have no exclusives. I see the images on social media all the time of all of these games now being on PC, and PlayStation 5 have nothing left. I don't think it's an issue of drawing people on over to PlayStation 5 from PC, because I think the PC audience is going to stick to PC, but I really do think there's a worry for lessening the value on PlayStation 5, and a portion of your core consumer is going to look elsewhere, look at PC, and yes, PC's issue is the barrier of entry, and the cost is so high initially. You generally make your money on the back end without having to pay to play online, but you need to retain that goodwill and that consumer interest for PlayStation as a platform, and I do think you risk losing that by porting everything you have to PC as well. I think there is value to exclusives, and for a long time I was thinking, hey, you're never gonna win over that PC audience anyway. Just put your games on PC. However, I don't think it's about winning over the PC audience. However, if you're ever gonna do that, the 1-2 punch of Wolverine and GTA 6 essentially being an exclusive because Xbox is irrelevant, that can do that. I truly do believe that. I think they're gonna sell a lot of PS5s this holiday, to be perfectly honest, but I don't think it's about winning over that audience as much, the hardcore PC guys. Rather, I think it's retaining that consumer interest from that audience that you've already cultivated, and if you get some other people picking up PS5s, that's great. And I don't think it's just, oh, this game is a system seller, that game is a system seller. I don't think Soros on its own is a system seller, but I think the collective entity of Soros, of Wolverine, of Intergalactic, of Santa Monica's new game, of God of War, of this game, that game, all of that together makes PlayStation a value proposition that's incredibly worthwhile to the core consumer. When you eliminate games from that collection of titles as being PlayStation exclusives, I think the perception does shift a little bit in that value proposition lessening. That's just my 2 cents on that. Again, that's one topic that I think there's a lot of debates to be had on what the optimal route to go is, but I can totally understand why PlayStation would be shifting away from it. But that's gonna do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Interested to hear your guys' input. Sound off down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.